Hello, welcome everybody to this program being broadcast by the Toilet Board Coalition. This program is one of a series that the Toilet Board Coalition is broadcasting associated with World Toilet Day of 2017. My name is John Lane and I'm going to be your compere for the next 45 minutes of this particular program. Our subject is the future sanitation economy. With me on the program, I've got a lineup of very interesting people who are going to share their thoughts about this. I've got Cheryl, who's the CEO of the Toilet Board Coalition. I've got Anne Darras, who is the president of the International Water Association. With us also is Charlie Beaver, who is senior vice president at Unilever. And a little bit later on, we'll be joined by Virgilio Perry Rivera, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Manila Water. The particular point, as I say, that we're celebrating in this broadcast today is work that the Toilet Board Coalition has been doing. So let me first of all pass over to Cheryl to tell us a little bit about the sanitation economy and what is it that the Toilet Board Coalition is issuing today. Cheryl, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, John, and thank you also to our colleagues joining. And I see that Perry Rivera has just come online, and so we have an all-star cast here, really of business leaders to talk about our launch of the sanitation economy. This is something that the Toilet Board has been working on for the last year. Really, an inflection point for us in trying to understand the business view on sanitation and the business opportunity spaces in delivering sanitation through the market, which is what we've been working on at the Toilet Board for the last 2 years. And what we found was that indeed there are many very interesting business models that are attempting and beginning to deliver sanitation through the market in very difficult markets. And what we found is that the scope of these business models is broadening. And in turn, as these opportunities broaden, we need more partners to join us in order to fill in that ecosystem to connect the markets in order for them to thrive and grow. And so our concept of the sanitation economy is really a way to put sanitation firmly into the global business view and firmly into a broader set of sectors that may not have thought that sanitation was their business. And what we're finding is that sanitation increasingly is very relevant for many businesses. Those businesses who are at risk from poor sanitation, either through their employees, the communities that they work in, or the risk of raw sewage. We're also seeing that there's new opportunity spaces as new technologies come online, and sanitation is very much a part of smart cities architecture as well, and we see opportunities there. The circular economy, which many business leaders have been developing and accelerating over the last 5 years, sanitation also has a place in, as we see sanitation systems as a wealth of valuable resources. And so our vision of the sanitation economy is actually 3 economies put together. The sanitation economy is the toilet economy, a robust marketplace of toilet products and services. And this goes much beyond the flush toilet or pen toilet that are most common around the world, but also very innovative products and services that are fit for purpose in different contexts around the world for all income levels and whether you are connected to a network or not. It's also the circular sanitation economy, which, as I was saying, is the robust marketplace of biological resources. And businesses are just starting to really look at the opportunities in mining biological and organic materials. And the sanitation system has a vast reservoir of these organic and biological materials, which can be used for renewable energy, for food and agriculture. And in fact, we're only uncovering some of the other uses of proteins, for example, as we heard from one of our companies on the webinar yesterday. And of course, the smart sanitation economy is the least developed of the three economies at the moment in terms of existing business models. But as big data starts to shape many different sectors and businesses, big data will also shape the sanitation sector, and we see very interesting business opportunities there. So this is our framing and our introduction of the sanitation economy, and we'll probably see a flash of the brochure coming on your screens at any time now. But maybe I'll stop there and invite our guests to speak, because for me, this is an exciting opportunity to now have the global business community talking about how they see the sanitation economy and how we can work together across sectors to accelerate the sanitation economy and deliver significant benefits to business and society in the future.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I see we had some materials on screen there, which is a material that explains what it is that Cheryl has been presenting. Thank you very much. That was a great way to get us started. You're asking about the global business view. You're making the point that sanitation at the moment consists of a lot of very interesting innovations going on around the world, and that we want to bring them together to form a kind of greater economy. So let's look to one or two of the biggest companies and groupings in the world now. Let me start with Charlie Beaver, who, as I mentioned, is a vice president at Unilever. There aren't very many larger or more globally spread companies than Unilever. But actually, Charlie, Unilever is mainly known as a household products company. So could you tell us why you're interested in sanitation and what your view is about this whole sanitation as a global business? Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, John. So firstly, at Unilever, what we have as a mission is how to make sustainable living commonplace. I think the first thought is that we see it as impossible to reach making sustainable living commonplace if we do not have universal access to sanitation. So just the simple fact of having access to a safe toilet and safe disposal of waste and recycling of that waste is critical to that. And what we do with our brands at Unilever is try to identify ways in which our individual brands can find a role to increase and enhance their social impact. And so what we've done is we've looked at the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And with SDG 6, so clean water and sanitation, we obviously see a big opportunity. And one of the brands that I work on is Domestos, which is the leading toilet cleaner globally. And what we see is an opportunity to work with organizations that are looking to make sanitation more accessible, more universal, helping them to scale and helping them to increase their impact. Because if we can achieve that, and as we achieve that, we quite simply put more toilets into the world, which require cleaning. And that's very much where the role of our brand Domestos comes in. And as I'm sure you and everyone listening knows, that the unpleasant aspect of using an unclean, unhygienic toilet is clear to all. And so it's not just about wanting a toilet, getting a toilet and using a toilet. It's also cleaning a toilet to make sure that that cycle becomes a sustaining cycle and that effectively takes waste out of the environment safely. And we're clear that if we can achieve this by supporting these organizations, we see a business growth opportunity as well. And we're very open about that. So we're looking for helping to solve one of society's biggest problems in a small way. But also by doing that, opening up growth opportunity for our brand in the future.
Great. Thanks very much, Charlie. And I note your point there that within the Sustainable Development Goal definition of sanitation as being safely managed, that covers a much broader range of topics than the old Millennium Development Goal definition of basic sanitation. And as you say, things like the hygiene condition of the toilet itself, which then has a direct link not only to people's health, but also to the experience of using a toilet. And thank you very much for explaining very clearly how your company and many other similar companies would see major business opportunities from the fact that billions of more people will be having toilets in the future.
Correct.
Let's move over now to the Philippines. We're joined by Perry Rivera, who's the Chief Operating Officer for Manila Water. And I'm keen to get the viewpoint from a major utility. Our viewers will know that Manila Water is a very well-known utility, has come out with a lot of innovative work, both on water and on sanitation. So I'm keen to hear from you, please, Perry. What's your view about the sanitation economy, and why would a utility such as Manila Water want to get involved in this work? Over to you.
Good afternoon from Manila. Hello to everyone. I'm so excited about this activity or event. I just want to share with you our experience and aspiration. First of all, Manila Water's aspiration is really to provide sustainable solutions, water and wastewater and sanitation solutions to everyone. As you know, in the Philippines, we are still faced with a significant poverty, even in Metro Manila. So the so-called base of the pyramid, it remains to be a challenge for a utility operator like Manila Water. So we are finding a solution so that the utility model could be leveraged and address the sanitation requirements of the base of the pyramid. So from Manila Water standpoint, first is really enhancing our service for water and sanitation services for all. That's the first point I'd like to make. The second point is, obviously, the trend right now is a decentralized system because emerging markets like the Philippines and players like Manila Water, if we adopt the classical approach to pipe solution, that's very expensive. I don't think we have all the resources to be able to copy the Western model. I'll probably describe it that way. So at this stage, we are now experimenting with various business models. Just like Unilever, we are interested in providing service to the base of the pyramid, which, based on our experience, providing service to water to the base of the pyramid. Wow, incredible commercial experience for Manila Water. Our collection efficiency is 100% at the base of the pyramid. So it is a myth that if they are poor people, they will not pay. Based on our experience and much to our surprise, if you provide good water service, they are able to pay consistently. So we are now leveraging those best practices to be able to address the difficult part of the supply chain, which is sanitation. Through the help of TBC or Toilet Board Coalition and in coordination with technology providers Lixil and Luat in UK, we just completed the first phase of a pilot project where we introduced to about 20 or 50 households the products of Luat with our utility model and also Lixil, and with the grant from Grand Challenges of Canada, we just completed the first phase. We are now excited to proceed with the second phase, and the third phase, commercial phase, will be, fingers crossed, will be in end of second quarter next year. So as you can see, our entry into the sanitation community or world is part of our aspiration. We think there are a lot of opportunities, but it is very important that we develop an appropriate business model for the base of the pyramid, which remains to be a challenge. I'll stop at this point, and if there are any questions, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Perry. I will come back to you with a couple of questions sparked off by some of the things you've said, and I think our other columnists might also want to. But let's hold on with that for a moment, because I want to bring in our fourth panel member here. That's Diane Darras, out of bed to come and talk to us about toilets. Over to you.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. So first, it is interesting. I am in Argentina, and I am in Argentina because the Development Congress of IWA is in Buenos Aires this week. So we are discussing in Buenos Aires all the technology which are more useful in developing countries. I think it is interesting to know that since 10 years now, IWA has started to consider that there could be some technologies which would be more adapted to developing countries. Which doesn't mean that we need to do something different and lower quality. We just think that what has been developed 200 years or 100 years and 50 years in developing countries with time, slowly, maybe we should do different things because we can't duplicate exactly today what has been done with time 150 years ago. And I think that it is one very important point because we still have many people who don't understand why, if they have been able to do something in their country, why the other country won't take the solution as the best solution. There is still quite a lot of doctrines in people, and it's always difficult to understand why you have to adapt, why the technology. And but it is, honestly, I consider that having a different solution probably will help. I don't know if at the very end people will go back to centralized or not, but it is clear that probably you need to find, for a time, or maybe for all time, different way. And there is a big debate, as Perry has said, between centralized, decentralized. How do you manage? What is the new technology we need to find in order to give sanitation? Because IWA is exactly in the same vision. It is an NGO sharing best practice and knowledge and science. But we try to develop the access to water and the sanitation. Of course, we like to try to go to the best solution, but in fact, nobody knows what is the best solution everywhere. I mean, we can compare, we can share, we can see, well, you've done that there and it's fine for us. So it's exactly the same for developing. And what we can see is, although we have been doing things, the world is still very, very, and it is really, we still are facing a big challenge in water and sanitation. In water, we have still 2 billion people without permanent water. And in sanitation, it is worst. So we need to find for both, I would say, solutions in order to go quicker and be able to reach in 2030 the objective of giving more water and sanitation.
Great. Thank you very much, Diane. That was really helpful, and it's nice to get that perspective from the IWA. I noticed that you stressed that your work is very much about sharing knowledge and sharing science, and I think that ties in very much with the introduction that Cheryl gave, whereby the Toilet Board Coalition is looking for new technical solutions that either have already been applied or will soon be applied on the sanitation economy. Let me just add a little footnote for the benefit of our viewers, which is just to say both Perry and Diane have talked about centralized systems. Let me just very briefly outline for our viewers how we see sanitation both now and going up to the year 2030 from the technology viewpoint initially, which is that really we see 3 different technologies for sanitation. The first one, which I characterize as a 19th century solution, is that you build huge pipes, which you bury in the ground at enormous expense, which then so people have flushing toilets in their houses. You use the toilet, you flush the toilet, beautiful quality drinking water then flushes away all the way down this pipe to the wastewater treatment works. So you as a householder can flush and forget. So from the point of view of the user, very nice. But my goodness, it's expensive, as Perry has mentioned, and my goodness, it's very old-fashioned, as Diane has mentioned. So that's what we call a centralized system. We call it centralized because all those sewer pipes come in to one whole, they're part of one big network, if you like, and they will come through to one or more sewage treatment works for all the sewage of a city, supposedly. So that's the first type of technology. The second type of technology, which we would often talk about as being on-site sanitation, is where you as a householder have a toilet of some sort, but it doesn't then flush away down a pipe. The products from your toilet, then what we call toilet resources, then go into some sort of hole in the ground. It's either a simple pit latrine or it's a slightly more complicated septic tank. But the basic point is it's sitting there in the ground at your home. Somebody then comes along at your request and empties that, the contents of that pit, and those are then taken away to a treatment plant so that it's transport by vehicle that replaces transport through sewerage systems. And that's a much more flexible system. Perry referred to it as decentralized, which is absolutely right, because as you can imagine, you don't need to have one system like that operating across a whole city. You can have different arrangements in different parts of the city. Perry also alluded to the so-called bottom of the pyramid. That means the poorest people in the world. Those people are customers, as in fact Charlie has pointed out. He wants them to be his customers as well, and the on-site solutions might be particularly suitable for them. And as Diane has said, that doesn't mean that they're second-rate solutions. It's our task to make sure that we can provide first quality solutions for the sanitation needs of everybody in the world, not only rich people, but particularly poor people. And then the third element, which Perry also alluded to in describing his very interesting work program in Manila, is container-based sanitation. Now, that might be a new piece of jargon for some of our viewers. Let me just explain what that means. It means that for you as a householder, you don't have to build a toilet because a company, usually it's a kind of local entrepreneur, will bring to your home a really nice little toilet, which built into it has a container in the bottom part of it. So you and your family members use that toilet exactly as you normally would. And then every couple of days or so, a staff member from that company comes along. They remove the full container from under your toilet. They put a new empty container in, and that's all 100% hygienically arranged. Those containers are then taken away, a little bit like on-site sanitation. They're taken away for treatment. And so we call it container-based sanitation because the essential feature is that toilet has a container in the base of it. Some people might have come across that even in richer countries. That system applies, let's say, in boats or caravans for rich people in rich countries. But as Perry was mentioning earlier, it really does seem to be a very promising idea in certain places, particularly where you've got people in urban areas who live at very high population density. And so each person, each household has very little space. For example, if you don't have a garden, how can you dig a pit? If you live in a block of flats, you're not going to dig through your floor and you'll end up in your neighbor's flat down below you. So the point is that centralized systems of waterborne sewerage, on-site solutions, and container-based sanitation can exist side by side and serve different people differently, but that ultimately all those people are customers. They're all receiving services from which they hope to benefit, and that's all part of the sanitation economy. We now have up on our screen a kind of overview of the sanitation economy, and Cheryl very helpfully mentioned this to us earlier in the program, that we have those three components: the toilet economy, which is really all about toilets and toilet associated products and associated processes. We have the circular sanitation economy, which I'd like to talk a little bit more about in the next few minutes. The essential feature of the circular economy is that one person's waste products are somebody else's inputs. So, for example, when we look at the circular sanitation economy, nowadays we don't talk about waste. Human urine, human excreta, we say that's not waste, that is a resource, because that can then be processed into something that somebody else is going to want to use, whether it's fertilizer or fuel or energy or chemicals, whatever it might be. So that's why we now call that toilet resources, because those are resources that feed into the circular economy. You can see in this picture that circular sanitation economy has buyers and sellers. So essentially, as I mentioned, the toilet resources that come from people's toilets then get into that circular economy and get used for a whole range of purposes. And the purpose will differ in different places. The economics will differ, but the underlying point is circularity. We're no longer producing human excreta from 7.6 billion people and just chucking it away and wasting it. We're recognizing that that's one of the resources to contribute to the sustainable development of our planet. And sustainable development was mentioned by each one of our speakers also. So that was just a footnote on the different types of sanitation and the way they can tie in to the circular economy. Let me come back to Cheryl, please. Could you please pick up from what we've heard from our other speakers, from Charlie and Perry and Diane, and bring us back to this very exciting piece of work Toilet Board Coalition are doing, and to tie in some of these comments that are being made, the work that we're presenting and launching here. Over to you, Cheryl.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, John, and thank you to our other speakers. I think what is very interesting about what we've heard so far is how different businesses can fit into the sanitation economy. And, I think in sanitation, we were feeling a little left out of the green economy and circular economy and smart cities, and we felt that sanitation has a place in all of these areas, as you've just heard from these businesses, and many businesses need to get involved. As we heard from Diane and Perry, there's many solutions operating already, and many more to come online. And so I think if you look at this. This Venn diagram, which is our infographic of the sanitation economy, this is meant to show that it is a robust marketplace already of products and services that we can deliver through the market that customers want, and in fact we can really leverage the assets of the sanitation system in different ways to create new market opportunities, and in doing so deliver more toilets to people that need them, and ensure, as Perry said, universal access to sanitation, and in addition do it in a way that is lower cost and faster, as Diane was saying, and delight and serve customers in new markets, as Charlie was saying. And so the toilet economy is something that we've been working on more in the toilet board so far, with very innovative models of delivering sanitation and toilets to the poor and to different people in different contexts. This also includes, of course, as Charlie was saying, the toilets that we want, the sanitation that we want, clean, safe, hygienic sanitation, and all of the products and services that go along with that. And so the toilet economy, as you can see here, is a number of different products and services being delivered by a marketplace of different buyers and sellers, as John was pointing out. But if we go back to the infographic before, where some of these economies start to link, I think that is going to be the most interesting piece of the sanitation economy moving forward. And so delighted to have both active participants of business leaders in the toilet economy and the circular sanitation economy here on the call. And tomorrow in the webinar that we'll be having, our online virtual summit tomorrow, will be on the smart sanitation economy, where we have many experts from that sphere of business and sectors joining to talk about where they see the opportunities for sanitation. But if you see, it's the overlapping lines here where we think some of the new business opportunity can be. And in particular, I'm very pleased to have Diane, the president of the International Water Association, with us, because we've been a group of innovators and large companies, working towards delivering the sanitation economy. And we've just started to work with companies that are pioneering in new models of the circular sanitation economy, but really keen to also work together with the larger, incumbents of the system that are also innovating, as Diane was saying. And I think that will be the power of the sanitation economy, is when those large actors that can scale these business solutions together with the innovators come together from the toilet economy linked to the circular sanitation economy and also the smart sanitation economy. And so I'd like to, if I could, call on Diane, if I may, just to maybe talk a little bit more to us around, in this framing, how you see new opportunity for the operators and large businesses that are in your network, and how they're already perhaps working with smaller businesses, and how you see connecting to the toilet economy and some of the work of the Toilet Board.
Okay, thank you. Well, as you say, one of the difficulties try to find the new economy, the new business model, because the big operators, which can be public, private, utilities like Perry, they need to understand what will be the economy, how you manage to do that. And I think if we don't remember that to be sustainable, you need to understand the economy and be able to pay for the service and to have skilled people to come. That is one of the challenge. I think in the innovation, people have been working on solutions, but they always have difficulties to understand the scale up, how it will work. I can do a pilot and it seems to work, but how can I scale up? And then how does it work at the greater stage? So we need to find, as Perry has said, we need to find places where you can maybe have sometimes 2 or 3 models at the same time to be able to understand how it can work inside the other model of the economy. So that it is one of the challenge. And of course, on my opinion, we expect a lot of the most innovator people in the developing countries, because they know that it is necessary. They are keen on developing their service. They can try and develop in some part of their cities and some part of the country, try to build up and to scale up. One of the difficulties is that what will be the economy when you scale up? And that is always in water a very big difficulty, because you can imagine a system, you say, okay, it works for 1 cubic meter, but how do I do it for 10,000 cubic meter or 1 million cubic meter? We have always a scale up difficulty, and that's why I feel that people are still reluctant to try to that, because they don't really do understand what will be the global figure. It's quite complex, but of course it's really interesting now. And as you said, also the circular economy, taking care of the resource. IWA has a group of specialists who work on that. What it is interesting is that you find people who are interested in that for very small sanitation, and people who are looking that for very big, very huge. We look at recirculating the sanitation for cities of 1 or 2 million people, 1 or 2 million people which are in China, things like that. And at the same time, we said, would it work? How would it work for a small village of 100 people? And of course, it's complex to go from the bicycle to the big train. I mean, it's how do you feel? How do you work? That is one of the challenges. But the only way to do it is really to find early adopter, people who want to try, and will be really focusing on all the detail, technology, economy, skilled worker. We need to find the workers and be able to put them in, understand how it works, and legal. We have also a legal part. So that's a challenge. But I think, I feel that there is a political will now. There are some people who are really interested, and it's a good time now to try to push and to put people of all those skills together in order to try to find that way, that new model, and apply it.
Thanks a lot, Diane. I'm just going to come back to Perry, and then after Perry, I'll come back to Charlie. Perry, I was interested in a couple of things you said. One was that you were talking about serving the poorest people as being a little bit of a novelty for a big utility, but your critics might say, surely that's your job. Isn't a water and sanitation utility supposed to serve everybody? So this is not specifically about Manila, but for utilities in general, why is it a surprise to have to deal with the poorest people? And how can you share with your fellow utility leaders the concept that actually that's their job, serving the poorest people, and tell us how you think this, all of these exciting ideas we're talking about can help you to actually fulfill your job? Over to you.
Thanks, John. Very interesting question. We consider Manila Water as one of the largest PPP water projects in the world. In 1997, when IFC introduced that
Sorry, Perry, can you tell us what PPP means? We don't necessarily understand your abbreviation there. Sorry.
Okay. Public-private partnership in 1997, where the Philippine government invited private sector to address the looming water crisis in Metro Manila in 1997. It was a pioneer move, actually, because PPP at that time, if you recall, it was only 10 years old in UK. Okay, so it was a bold move for the Philippine government and IFC to introduce that to one of the largest mega cities in the world, in Metro Manila. So when we won the procurement and started operating and dealing directly with the problems of service provision, we thought that we won't be a successful utility operator if we don't address the biggest market, which is the base of the pyramid. In fairness to the Philippine government through its Water Utility Corporation, they have made 60% connections already, 60% coverage to middle income, to industry, to commercial establishments. But the base of the pyramid remains unconnected. They are outside the grid. So we started developing a system and trying to leverage the existing utility model to address the base of the pyramid. How did we do that? First, the pricing structure in the Philippines, there is inherent cross-subsidy. So the lowest lowest or smallest consuming account or customers are cross-subsidized by big customers. I think that it was very important to be able to tap or leverage that cross-subsidy to be able to roll out the distribution system and make the base of the pyramid part of the legitimate customer base of Manila Water. During a 15-year period, we increased the customer base of Manila Water from 3 million to 6.5 million. Do you know that 2 million customers belong to the base of the pyramid? So we are very excited about that achievement. Now we're trying to see how can we tweak the model, the utility model, and now provide sanitation to the same set of customers, base of the pyramid, where you can have a decentralized system, a container-based sanitation system, but can still be a viable solution because there's cross-subsidy, there is scale, unit cost will go down as you provide the service to the same set of customers. So I think to make the sanitation economy viable, based on what I've observed so far, would be number one, the business model or the social model, the pricing component is extremely important, because if you're able to address the pricing component of the model, then you can, the solution becomes sustainable. Number two, at the end of the day, it's very important to understand the base of the pyramid. In each locality, they have a different set of characteristics. You need to understand their pain points. You need to involve them in the delivery of the solution. In the pilot that we are doing right now in Laguna Water, we have had focus group discussions with these customers, and very, very interesting feedback actually. The take-up so far has been very excellent actually. So as pointed out by Diane earlier, the trick now and the major challenge, and we're very excited about this, the next phase of scaling up to, let's say, 100,000 customers or even 1 million customers. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Perry. That's terrific. Charlie, let me just come back to you for a final word, please. You've heard a lot of other interesting points being made around the table. And do you have any particular reflections on the relationship between the very big companies like yourself and some of the smaller companies? We're talking about scale up. We're talking about local entrepreneurs. We often hear a criticism that a local entrepreneur in a developing country might actually be squashed and made bankrupt by these international giants like Unilever. How do you see the relationship in this particular context? Charlie?
So I think what we're seeing across all of the examples shared today is that there is a lot of innovation happening, both in terms of business models and in terms of product innovation. And the success of those innovations, I think, is driven by closeness to your customers, closeness to the people who are using it. And the point is that can be done by anyone. That can be done by a small local entrepreneur. It can be done by a big multinational. And actually, quite often, it can be done best working together in partnership, because sanitation is a complex system and one partner cannot really deliver all aspects of it. I think that's one of the interesting aspects of what we're trying to do at the Toilet Board Coalition, which is to convene the right members, which is a combination of small and large, local and multinational, different types of expertise, to find that human element in terms of what's going to create the pool for these products and services, and then making sure that the business model makes sense both to the person paying for it, so the customer, and also the person delivering it. And so I genuinely believe that small and large have a role to play together. And ultimately, those who are closest to the customers and closest to their needs and solve most of their pain points at an acceptable quality and acceptable cost are the ones who are going to see the greatest reward. So those are just a few reflections, having heard quite a diverse set of examples from our panel.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Charlie. That brings us pretty well to the end of this particular program. So let me first of all thank Diane and Perry and Charlie, and of course CEO Cheryl for being with us for this program. Let me particularly thank everyone who's watching us. And I'm conscious that we fitted in quite a lot of ideas during this time that might be new to you. So please have a look at the Toilet Board Coalition website, because there's a lot of information and more detail about them there. in particular, we haven't spoken so much today about the smart sanitation economy because we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. So please stay with us for the Toilet Board Coalition broadcasts throughout this week. And as we lead up to World Toilet Day itself on the 19th of November, we encourage everybody to use that day as a prompt for your own work in sanitation. And let me leave you with the thoughts and observation of that great moral beacon of our times, Nelson Mandela, who reminds us that we should not ascribe importance to a subject on the basis of how attractive it may seem, but on the basis of how much good it does to how many people around the world. And on that basis, sanitation has to be one of the most important subjects in the world. And we hope that this broadcast has contributed to your interest and support for the subject. So thank you very much from our panel. Thanks for listening, and goodbye from the Toilet Board Coalition.